Lorelei Whitmore stands before the massive rust-streaked barn doors, her 73-year-old hands trembling around a brass key that catches the late morning sun. Behind her, Callum leans against their rental sedan, one hand pressed to his chest, where surgeons cut him open 6 months ago to bypass 3 dying arteries. The wind cuts across the Iowa cornfields, carrying the scent of rain and turned earth, and somewhere in the distance, a crow calls out, like it knows what they're about to find. Her husband spent 47 years hiding this place from her, told her it was his uncle's junk storage, told her the roof was unsafe, the floor rotted through the whole structure, one strong wind from collapse. Told her never to come here, never to ask about it, never to wonder what he did during those Saturday afternoons when he'd disappear for 6 hours and come home smelling like motor oil and old leather. 3 days ago, their bank account registered $1,047.29. Their children, all 3 of them, haven't called in 31 months. 72 hours from now, strangers in scrubs will escort them to separate nursing homes 187 miles apart, and after 52 years of marriage, they'll die alone in rooms that smell like disinfectant and institutional despair. Then Callum opened a locked drawer she never knew existed. Inside, photographs of automobiles worth more than small countries, maintenance logs spanning half a century, and this key. The key to everything they lost, everything they're about to lose, and possibly everything they never knew they could have. What waits behind these barn doors didn't just save their lives, it proved that sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who keep the most dangerous secrets. If you've ever sacrificed everything for your children only to be forgotten when you needed them most, this story belongs to you. If you've ever wondered whether love means protection or honesty, whether silence can be its own kind of devotion, stay here. Because what Lorelei and Callum discovered that December morning changed not just their future, but their understanding of every year that came before. The thing about being abandoned is that it happens slowly, then all at once. 31 months of silence sounds like a long time until you break it down into moments. 5 specific moments when Lorelei called her children and they didn't answer. 5 times she needed them and they sent flowers instead, texts instead, excuses instead of themselves. But first, you need to understand how far they'd fallen. December 12, 2023. The apartment on Elm Ridge Court costs $1,485 monthly, which is $112 more than Callum's Social Security check. Lorelei's check covers part of the deficit. The rest comes from selling their past piece-by-piece wedding china for $150, his craftsman tools for $220, her mother's jewelry for $380. Everything except the rings on their fingers, because some symbols matter more than survival. The bank account shows 4 digits, but 3 of them barely count. 1,047.29. Enough for maybe 10 days of food if they're careful. Not enough for the eviction notice taped to their door 3 days overdue. Not enough for the nursing home deposits due in 72 hours. Not enough for Callum's heart medication that costs $2,104 monthly, even with Medicare. So he takes half doses and hopes his damaged heart doesn't notice the difference. Their previous home, the one they owned for 39 years, sold at foreclosure auction for $287,000. After the bank took their cut and the medical liens cleared, Lorelei and Callum walked away with $0 and 47 years of memories they couldn't afford to store. The house on Oakwood Lane, where they raised 3 children, hosted 39 Thanksgivings, celebrated 52 anniversaries, and built what they thought was an unshakable foundation for their golden years, now belongs to a real estate investor from Des Moines who's never met them and never will. The medical debt itemizes like this. Callum's triple bypass surgery from June 2022 cost $134,782.44. Lorelei's breast cancer treatment from 2021 ran $91,335.67. Those 2 catastrophic events drained their savings completely. Ongoing medications, doctor visits, follow-ups, and the maintenance required to keep 2 elderly bodies functioning added another $2,000 monthly that their fixed income couldn't touch. Total medical debt, $226,118.11. Total ability to pay none. The nursing homes presented their solution with professional sympathy. Cedar Grove in Des Moines would take Callum for $9,100 monthly. Maplewood Senior Living in Davenport would accept Lorelei for $8,800. The facilities sat 187 miles apart because that's what Medicaid would cover. And when the social worker explained that couples often ended up separated, she said it like it was normal, like 52 years of marriage was just another logistical detail to work around. December 12th unfolds like every day since they lost everything precise, joyless, calibrated to stretch nothing into something. 6 in the morning, Callum wakes with his hand pressed to his sternum where the pain lives. Now the deep ache that means his heart isn't pumping, right isn't keeping pace with what his body needs. He takes 3 pills instead of 6, carefully cutting the tablets in half with a kitchen knife because the pharmacy won't refill his prescription until he pays the $843 he owes from last month. Breakfast arrives from a box. 2 packets of instant oatmeal, store brand, 39 cents each. Lorelei splits 1 packet between 2 bowls, adds hot tap water, and they eat standing at the kitchen counter because sitting at a table feels too much like pretending this is a real meal. The second packet goes back in the cupboard for tomorrow, 8:30, and Lorelei wraps herself in the winter coat with the broken zipper, the one she could replace for $45 if they had $45, and steps into the 28-degree morning for the 2.1-mile walk to the public library. The bus costs $2.50 each way, $5 daily, $35 weekly, $140 monthly. She saves the bus fare and arrives at the library with her fingers numb and her lungs burning from cold air. But she arrives with $5 still in her pocket, and that's what survival looks like now. The library computers are free. The heat is free. The bathrooms are free. Lorelei spends 4 hours applying for jobs that won't hire a 73-year-old former elementary school teacher, researching nursing home alternatives that don't exist at their income level, and reading articles about heart failure that confirm what she already knows without another surgery. Callum has maybe 2 years. With surgery, maybe 10. Cost of surgery $187,000 minimum, which might as well be $187 million. She checks her email every 30 minutes, even though she knows it's empty. Thornton hasn't written in 8 months. Genevieve hasn't responded to the last 4 messages Lorelei sent. Beatrice delivered her last email 6 weeks ago, 3 sentences about how busy she is, how much she thinks about them, how she'll try to visit soon. The trying never becomes doing. The thinking never becomes calling. The busy never becomes available. Lunch is half a can of condensed soup stretched with 2 cans of water, plus 6 saltine crackers from the food pantry. Callum eats his portion alone at the apartment, listening to AM radio because the batteries still work and the programming is free. He mends the tear in his pants with dental floss because thread costs money they don't have, and the stitches show, but nobody sees him anymore anyway, so what does it matter? Lorelei returns at 3:30 carrying the day's provisions. 4 cans of dented soup from the church pantry, 1 loaf of day-old bread marked down to 50 cents, and a stack of job rejection letters that all say the same thing in different words. Overqualified, not the right fit, moving forward with other candidates. At 73, she's too expensive to insure, too close to retirement to invest in, too old to matter. Dinner happens at 5. 1 can of tomato soup, $1.09 from the discount shelf, mixed with 2 cans of tap water and divided between 2 bowls. 2 slices of bread toasted dark to hide the staleness. Margarine from a free sample container Lorelei took from the diner 3 blocks away, where she used to treat herself to pancakes on Sunday mornings back when treating herself was possible. They eat watching the local news on the antenna television that picks up 3 channels if the weather cooperates. The thermostat stays locked at 62 degrees because higher means higher bills, and the gas company already sent 2 disconnect warnings. Both of them wear their winter coats indoors. Both of them pretend this is fine, this is manageable, this is just temporary until something changes, even though they both know nothing is going to change except the date when they're separated forever. 9 o'clock means bed, because staying awake means using electricity, means staying warm, requires heat, means being conscious, requires confronting what their lives have become. Callum takes his evening medications at half-dose, washing down the pills with tap water, while Lorelei watches from the doorway and says nothing, because what is there to say? They lie together in the dark under every blanket they own, and sometime around 2:30 Callum wakes with his hand clutching his chest and his breath coming shallow. Lorelei wakes with him, reaches for his hand in the darkness, and waits for the pain to pass. It always passes. Someday it won't, but tonight it does, and they lie there in silence, listening to each other breathe until exhaustion drags them back under. This is what poverty looks like after a lifetime of work. This is what happens when your body fails and your savings evaporate and your children forget you exist. This is the cliff edge they're living on, and 72 hours from now they'll step off it into separate facilities where they'll die alone, because that's what America does to people who can't afford to stay together. But first, the children. First, understanding exactly how they got here. First, the 5 moments that proved blood means nothing when your kids decide you're not worth their time. June 8, 2022. University of Iowa Hospital's Surgery Wing. Callum's triple bypass starts at 5:30 in the morning, and Lorelei sits alone in the waiting room for 8 hours, watching families come and go, watching other people's children show up with coffee and worry, watching everyone except the 3 people she raised. She calls Thornton at 6. His phone diverts to voicemail and she leaves a message. "Your father's in surgery. I'm alone. Please come." She calls Genevieve at 7. The phone rings 4 times before a text arrives. "In meeting, call you back." She calls Beatrice at 8. Voicemail. Another message. Another hour alone. 3 in the afternoon, the surgeon emerges and says the word stable, and Lorelei follows a nurse to intensive care where Callum lies intubated and pale, his chest rising and falling to a rhythm set by machines. She sits beside his bed, holding his hand and waiting for their children to walk through the door to prove that 8 hours of open-heart surgery matters enough to interrupt their important metropolitan lives. They don't come. Not that night, not the next day, not ever. June 10th. A delivery arrives. Carnations in a glass vase, generic arrangement, the kind you order online without thinking. The card reads, "Get well, Dad. Hope you're up and around soon. Thor." The receipt falls out when Lorelei moves the vase to make room for the medical equipment. $54.99. Thornton spent $55 on flowers instead of 5 hours in a car. He bought sympathy instead of showing up, and somehow that was supposed to be enough. Lorelei sits beside her unconscious husband, holding a receipt that proves their oldest child values his time at more than $10 per hour of driving, and something inside her cracks. Not breaks, not yet, but cracks. October 14th, 2021. The oncologist's office in Cedar Rapids. The chair that faces the window the moment when Dr. Patterson says the word cancer, and Lorelei's brain stops processing anything after that. Stage 2. Breast, surgery and radiation. 90% survival rate if we're aggressive. She walks to her car in the parking lot and sits behind the wheel, shaking. Callum is home recovering from his first heart attack. Can't drive, doesn't know she had this appointment. She needs to tell someone. She needs to hear a voice that isn't her own explaining how this is going to be okay. She calls Thornton, leaves voicemail. "Thor, this is Mom. I just got some news from my doctor. I have breast cancer. Can you please call me back? I really need to talk to someone." 4 hours later, a text arrives. "Sorry, Mom, that's rough. You'll beat it. You're tough. Talk soon." 11 words. Her son sent 11 words in response to her cancer diagnosis. Not a call, not a conversation. 11 words typed during a meeting or a lunch break or while waiting for a subway train, and that was supposed to carry the weight of comfort. She calls Genevieve. The phone answers and her daughter's voice comes through, rushed, impatient. "Mom, can this wait? I'm literally walking into quarterly presentation." The words stick in Lorelei's throat, but she forces them out. "Jenna, I have cancer." Silence stretches for 3 seconds. Oh God. Okay. Look, I'll call you tonight. Okay. I promise. The call comes 5 days later, lasts 6 minutes, and covers mostly Genevieve's promotion to vice president and how stressful the new responsibilities are. Lorelei mentions the cancer twice. Genevieve says she's sorry, says it'll be fine. Says she looked up the survival statistics, and they're really good, Mom. You've got this. Then she has to go another meeting talk soon. Beatrice responds the next day with an email, 3 paragraphs of researched information about treatment options and survival rates, all very thorough and clinical and distant. The email ends with, "We'll try to call this weekend. Love you." She doesn't call that weekend or any weekend after. Lorelei drives home alone that October afternoon, parks in her driveway, and cries for 45 minutes before she can compose herself enough to walk inside and tell Callum that their world just got smaller and none of their children cared enough to ask how small. April 13th, 2023. The foreclosure is final. The sheriff escorts them out at 5 in the evening, and Lorelei and Callum stand on the sidewalk beside a U-Haul truck containing 39 years of life compressed into 14 boxes. The house on Oakwood Lane, where they raised 3 children, where they hosted graduation parties and birthday celebrations, and every holiday meal, now belongs to strangers who'll paint over the growth chart marks in the kitchen doorway and never know what they're erasing. That night, Lorelei writes an email to all 3 children. The subject line reads, "We lost our home." The body runs 8 paragraphs explaining the foreclosure, the debt, the apartment they're moving to, the help they need. She writes about the memories made in that house, about how this is where their children grew up, about how losing it feels like losing the last physical proof that their family ever existed. She asks for help. She asks for phone calls. She asks them to remember that their parents are still alive and still need them. She hits send at 9:14 p.m. and watches the email disappear into the void. Thornton responds 5 days later. 2 paragraphs. "Sorry about the house. Unfortunately, Sarah and I just bought a place in the Hamptons and our finances are tight. Wish I could help. Hang in there." Lorelei Googles Thornton Whitmore Hamptons that night and finds a real estate listing for a beachfront property purchased for $3.4 million. Her son, who can't afford to help his parents, just bought a vacation home worth more than they'll earn in 10 lifetimes. Genevieve texts 1 week later. "Sorry to hear about house, Mom. Things tight for us too. Hope apartment works out. Love you guys." Lorelei checks Instagram that same day and finds photos of Genevieve on a beach in Turks and Caicos, cocktail in hand, caption about much-needed vacation. Things are tight apparently, except for international travel. Beatrice's email arrives 10 days after the foreclosure. Longest response, most words, most genuine emotion. She writes about heartbreak and med school loans and Portland rent and barely making it herself. She writes about thinking of them all the time, about wanting to call, but work is crushing her, about wishing she could do more, but she can't. At the bottom, "I hope you understand." Lorelei understands. Understands that even the kindest child, the one who sounds most sorry, still doesn't show up, still doesn't call, still chooses herself over the people who chose her first for 22 years. July 20th, 2023. Lorelei spends 6 hours at the kitchen table writing 3 letters by hand, 1 to each child. She writes about specific memories, teaching Thornton to ride a bike, driving Genevieve to ballet practice every day for 3 years, staying up all night with Beatrice studying for medical boards. She writes about the sacrifices they made, the extra shifts Callum worked, the dreams they deferred so their children could have better. She writes about being 73 and 75, about how they won't be here forever, about how someday their children will want to say things and there won't be anyone left to hear them. She includes photographs. Thornton's law school graduation with both parents beaming. Genevieve's wedding with Callum walking her down the aisle despite recovering from his first heart attack. Beatrice's white coat ceremony with Lorelei crying proud tears in the front row. July 22nd, she mails all 3 letters, certified mail signature required. August 3rd, Thornton's letter returns, stamped, "Return to sender, addressee unknown." He moved to the Hamptons, never forwarded his mail, never told his parents his new address. August 8th. Genevieve's letter comes back marked, "Refused." She saw the certified mail notice at the post office and chose not to pick it up. August 15th. The tracking shows Beatrice's letter delivered, signed for received. No response ever comes. Lorelei sits at the kitchen table holding 2 returned letters and wonders what failure feels like to other people, whether it burns the same when your children decide you're not worth their time. Callum stands in the doorway watching her cry. "Lori, maybe it's time to stop trying. There are children, Cal." His voice comes quiet, defeated. "They were our children. I don't know what they are now." September 27th, 2023. Callum's 75th birthday. 7 in the morning. Lorelei tries calling Thornton and gets a recording. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." She tries again. Same message. She sends a text. "This number has blocked your contact." 7:15. She calls Genevieve. 1 ring, immediate voicemail. Text message, "Send failure." Blocked. 7:30. Beatrice's number rings twice before voicemail. Not blocked, just ignored. Lorelei leaves a message wishing her daughter's father a happy birthday, knowing it won't be returned. 7:45. Lorelei tells Callum his children blocked them. He stares at his phone like it's a foreign object, like technology just confirmed what he already suspected. They don't want to hear from him. On his 75th birthday, his own children made him disappear. Lorelei has been married to this man for 52 years, and she's never seen him cry. Today she watches tears run down his weathered face while he stands silent in their cold apartment, and she understands that some pain is too large for sound. That evening she lights a single candle on a 75-cent cupcake from the grocery clearance section. She sings "Happy Birthday" alone because Callum can't speak through the grief. He blows out the candle and makes a wish that his children would remember he exists. The wish doesn't come true. 31 months of silence. 5 moments of abandonment. 3 children who forgot where they came from. And now 72 hours until Lorelei and Callum are separated forever into facilities that will bill what remains of their Social Security while they die alone in rooms 187 miles apart. But 3 days before that deadline, everything changes. December 9th, 2023. 9 in the morning at University of Iowa Cardiology Clinic. Dr. Hammond reviews Callum's latest echocardiogram, and his face does that thing doctors' faces do when the news is bad, but they're trained to deliver it calmly. "Mr. Whitmore, I need to be direct. Your ejection fraction has dropped to 28%. That's dangerously low." Callum's hand finds Lorelei's. "What does that mean?" "Your heart is pumping at less than a third of normal capacity. You need another cardiac surgery. Soon." "How soon?" "Within 6 months, maybe less. And given your age and previous surgery, the survival rate for a second operation at 75 is approximately 60%. The number hangs in the air like smoke. 60% chance of surviving, 40% chance of dying on the table, 100% chance they can't afford it either way. What happens if I don't have the surgery? Dr. Hammond's voice stays professional, but his eyes show pity. Heart failure. Could be 6 months. Could be 2 years. But without intervention, it's terminal. He slides a paper across the desk. Cost estimate for another cardiac procedure, $187,000 to $240,000. Medicare covers 80%. Out of pocket, $37,400 to $48,000 minimum. Lorelei looks at the number and thinks about the $1,047 in their account. They'd need to find $36,000 more dollars just to give Callum a 60% chance of not dying in the next 6 months. 2 in the afternoon, they return to the apartment in silence. Lorelei begins cleaning out Callum's desk, preparing for the nursing home move, sorting through decades of paperwork and old receipts and memories they can't afford to keep. Her hand brushes against a drawer she's never noticed before, small and locked, hidden under the main desk surface. Don't open that. She turns and Callum stands in the doorway looking like he's aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Cal, we're moving in 6 days. I have to pack everything. That drawer. I need to show you something. But not here. Not yet. What are you talking about? He sits heavily in the desk chair, and for a long moment he just breathes. Lori, I've kept a secret from you. For 47 years. I thought I'd have time to tell you properly, but maybe I don't have time anymore. Fear crawls up Lorelei's spine. Cal, what secret? He reaches behind his neck and pulls out a chain. She's never seen a chain hidden under his shirt for however many years, holding a brass key that catches the afternoon light. My Uncle Harlan, the one who died in 1976. He left me his property in rural Iowa, a barn and 8 acres outside Dyersville. You inherited property in 1976. That's 47 years ago. Why didn't you tell me? Because of what I was hiding inside it. He unlocks the drawer. Inside, manila folder, thick with documents, photographs of automobiles, receipts spanning decades, a leather journal worn soft with age, and another brass key larger and older than the first. Lorelei opens the folder and reads the first page, Automotive Collection Inventory, Private. Last updated November 2022. Below that, a numbered list of 12 vehicles with names that mean nothing to her, but everything to collectors who understand what American automotive history is worth. Cal, I don't understand. What is this? His voice comes quiet, steady, like he's been rehearsing this moment for half a century. It's my uncle's collection. He started it in the 1950s, bought these cars when they were just used cars, when nobody knew what they'd become. When he died in 76, he left them all to me, left me the barn to store them. I was 28 years old. We'd just had Thornton. You were pregnant with Genevieve. We had a mortgage. We were broke. Uncle Harlan made me promise never tell anyone, never sell unless absolutely necessary, protect the collection until the time was right. Protect the collection, Cal. We just lost our house. We're $226,000 in debt. We're being separated in 6 days. And you've been hiding vintage cars, I know. I know it sounds insane, but I made a promise to a dying man, and I thought if I sold them too early the money would just disappear. Medical bills, kids' college, the mortgage, it would all just vanish. I wanted to wait until we really truly needed them, until it was life or death. Lori, I think that time is now. Lorelei picks up a photograph from 1963 showing a young man beside a pristine sports car. Note on the back in careful handwriting, paid $4,500. Will be worth fortune someday. Her hands shake as she asks the question, Cal, how much are these cars worth now? He opens the journal to a page covered in auction results printed from websites she's never heard of. Shelby Cobra, 3.2 to 4.8 million. Plymouth Hemi Cuda convertible, 4.5 to 5.5 million. Ferrari Testarossa, 39 to 48 million. The numbers keep climbing. Estimated total collection value $285 million to $340 million. Lorelei's knees buckle. Callum catches her and they sink to the floor together, both of them staring at numbers that can't be real, that erase everything they thought they knew about their poverty, their choices, their 47 years of marriage. $285 million. That's the low estimate. Some of these cars are one-of-one examples. Fully documented. Never restored, all original. Uncle Harlan was meticulous. Anger rises through her shock. Cal, we've been eating instant oatmeal. I've been walking 2 miles in winter to save bus fare. You've been rationing your heart medication because we can't afford refills. And you've been sitting on $300 million, I know. God, Lori, I know. But I was terrified. Terrified that if I told you, if anyone knew, it would all go wrong somehow. The IRS lawyers, scammers, our own kids showing up with their hands out. I wanted to protect you, protect us. Protect me, Cal. I thought we were going to die alone in separate nursing homes. I was going to tell you. This week. Before the move. I couldn't let us be separated. I just wanted to do it right. Take you there. Show you. Let you see what Uncle Harlan and I built. They sit on the floor crying, holding each other, 47 years of marriage rebuilt and shattered in the same moment. Where is this barn? Dyersville. 89 miles north. Middle of nowhere, 8 acres surrounded by cornfields. Nobody's been there except me in 47 years. When were you last there, June? Before my surgery. I wanted to make sure everything was still secure. Checked the climate control, the dehumidifiers, the security system. Climate control, Cal, we couldn't afford to run our heater above 62 degrees, and you were paying for climate control in a secret barn. It's not much. $247 monthly. Solar panels cover most of it. I told you it was life insurance premiums. Lorelei stares at the man she's known for 52 years and realizes she doesn't know him at all. 47 years, Cal. 47 years you've been lying to me. Not lying, protecting. There's a difference I don't know anymore. But Lori, we can pay for my surgery now. We can pay off the debt. We can buy a house. We never have to worry about money again. We just have to drive 89 miles and open that barn door. 10 that night they lie awake in the dark. Lorelei processes what she can't quite believe, $300 million hidden in a barn while they sold their wedding china to buy groceries. Are you angry? I don't know what I am. Do you want to see it? The collection. Long pause. When tomorrow? We could drive up tomorrow. Be there by lunch. And then what? Then we decide. Together. Like we should have done 47 years ago. December 10th, 7 in the morning. Lorelei makes her decision before she's fully conscious of making it. She packs an overnight bag, tells Callum they're going, and refuses to let herself think too hard about what happens next. 7:45, they rent a car with the last $219 in their account. Balance remaining $828.29. Enough for maybe 5 more days of poverty, or maybe the last time they'll ever count pennies. 8:30. They head north on Highway 20 toward Dyersville, toward whatever waits in that barn, toward a future they can't imagine, and a past they can't reconcile. The drive takes 90 minutes through flat Iowa farmland, corn stubble fields stretching to horizon sky the color of old steel. Lorelei reads from Callum's journal, while he drives, learning about the 47 years he spent maintaining someone else's dream while their own life fell apart. Entry from 1979. Lori asked where I was last Saturday. Told her hardware store. Actually was in barn changing oil on the Cobra. Felt terrible lying. But promise to Uncle H is sacred. Why keep lying for so long? Because every time I thought about telling you something would happen. Medical bill, kids' tuition, mortgage payment, and I'd think if I sell even one car it'll all disappear. We'll spend it and have nothing left. I wanted you to have security, real security. Forever. You could have trusted me. I know. 9:47. They pass the sign Dyersville, 12 miles. 10:15 they exit onto gravel roads where corn gives way to nothing, where the only structures are storage barns and grain silos, and the occasional farmhouse set back from the road like it's hiding from the world. 10:40 they turn onto a private dirt road marked by a chain and a sign reading, "Private property, no trespassing." Callum unlocks the chain with a key from his pocket, and Lorelei understands he's made this drive hundreds of times, knows every turn, every landmark, every secret. 10:55 the barn appears in the distance, and Lorelei's breath catches. Cal. That's not a barn. That's a fortress. The structure spans 120 feet by 80. All metal siding weathered to rust and gray solar panels barely visible on the roof through careful tree cover. 8-foot fencing hidden in overgrown hedges. From the road it looks like agricultural storage, unremarkable and forgotten. Up close, it looks like something designed to keep the world out and treasures in. 11 o'clock they park and sit in silence. Callum's hands stay on the steering wheel even though the engine is off. This is really happening. This is really happening. I'm scared. Me too. Why are you scared? You've been here hundreds of times. Because I've never brought you here. Never shown anyone. For 47 years this place has been my secret. Mine and Uncle Harlan's. Now I'm sharing it with you. And after this nothing will ever be the same. Lorelei reaches for his hand and feels how it trembles. Cal, we're already losing everything. Our home, our health, each other in 5 days. How much worse can different be? Small smile crosses his weathered face. You're right. Let's do this. They approach the main door through grass grown knee-high. Keypad lock, heavy deadbolt, 3 separate mechanisms designed to keep out everyone who wasn't meant to find this place. Callum enters the code, slides the brass key into the final lock, and grips the handle. He pauses, turns to her. Lori, before I open this, I need you to know. Everything in here I did for you. Every car I maintained, every hour I spent here instead of home, it was all for you. For us. For this moment. I love you. I've loved you for 52 years, and I'm sorry I waited this long to show you. Just open the door, Cal. He pulls and the lock disengages with a sound like fate clicking into place. The door swings inward and darkness gives way to motion sensor lights that flicker on in sequence, revealing what Callum spent 47 years protecting. Lorelei steps across the threshold and her mind struggles to process what her eyes report. Not a barn, but a cathedral. Not storage, but a museum. Not decay, but preservation so meticulous it borders on worship. 12 automobiles rest in perfect alignment on polished concrete, each one positioned under dedicated lighting, each one separated by precisely measured distance. The air tastes climate-controlled and dry. 68 degrees exactly, humidity held at 45% by industrial dehumidifiers humming in the corners. No dust, no rust, no evidence that 47 years have passed since these machines last moved under their own power. The first car catches what little breath Lorelei has left. Guardsman blue with twin white racing stripes, low and predatory chrome gleaming like it rolled off a showroom floor yesterday instead of 1967. The body curves in ways that suggest violence barely contained, and even sitting still the thing radiates menace. That's the Shelby Cobra, CSX 3309, one of 31 ever built. Uncle Harlan bought it in 1972 for $11,000 from a regional racer who needed cash more than speed. Lorelei walks closer, her reflection distorting across the perfect paint. How much is it worth now? Between $3 and $5 million depending on auction. 4.2 if we're conservative. $4 million. She touches the hood and feels metal cool as riverstone, smooth as glass. One car. $4 million, while they sold her mother's jewelry for $380. The second vehicle sits wider, more aggressive, painted a shade of purple that shouldn't work but does. Plymouth Hemi-Cuda convertible, 1971, of only 7 built with this exact configuration. Uncle Harlan bought it in 1974 from a dealership going bankrupt. Paid $9,000, worth $5.5 million now. $5.5 million. Lorelei's math can't keep pace with the numbers Callum recites like liturgy. She moves down the line and each car tells the same story, purchased for thousands when nobody understood their future value, maintained with obsessive precision, preserved as investments that matured across decades while Lorelei and Callum struggled to afford groceries. The Ferrari sits third in line, red as arterial blood curves that make the Cobra look restrained. 1957. Testarossa. Factory racing specification. Original engine complete. Documentation of every race it won before Uncle Harlan acquired it from an estate sale in 1961. Purchase price $18,000. Current value $48 million. $48 million. The number doesn't fit in Lorelei's understanding of money. That's not wealth, that's abstraction. Callum walks her through each vehicle like a museum curator, his voice carrying reverence usually reserved for sacred spaces. The 1968 Ford GT40 that won Le Mans before retiring to this barn. The 1955 Mercedes Gullwing with doors that open skyward and an interior that smells like leather preserved in amber. The Lamborghini Miura painted a Rancio that glows like captured sunset. He knows every specification, every maintenance interval, every story. This Aston Martin DB5. Same model, James Bond drove. Uncle Harlan bought it in 1969 from a British diplomat rotating back to London. The Porsche Carrera RS, original ducktail spoiler matching numbers engine purchased from a widow selling her husband's midlife crisis. The Camaro ZL11 of '69 built drag racing pedigree, acquired from a dealer who didn't know what he had. Every Saturday for 47 years, every Saturday, sometimes Sundays too. Changed fluids, rotated tires, started engines, checked pressure, documented everything, kept them alive. Lorelei stops at the final car, a 1932 Ford Hot Rod painted midnight blue with flames that seem to move in the overhead light. This one's different. Modified, customized, built rather than preserved. Uncle Harlan's personal project. Built it from 1958 to '63. 5 years of weekends. Wanted something he could actually drive instead of just protect. This one's not worth what the others are, maybe $200,000, but it was his favorite. The barn's walls hold the infrastructure Callum built across 4 decades. Pegboard panels organized with tools arranged by size and function, each one outlined in marker so you know exactly where it belongs. Workbenches spotless despite decades of use. Shelving units filled with parts cataloged and labeled. Cobra brake pads, 1967. Spec Ferrari, spark plugs. Original manufacturer CUDA carburetor rebuild kit. Climate control systems line one wall, commercial-grade equipment that belongs in archives storing priceless art. Callum shows her the monitors tracking temperature and humidity, second by second, the backup generators that kick in during power failures, the security cameras recording every angle. $247 monthly to run all this. Solar panels generate most of it. Battery backup for cloudy weeks. Security system ties into cellular network, sends alerts to my phone if anything changes. I've been monitoring it from our apartment every day. Every day. While Lorelei walked 2 miles to save bus fare, Callum checked his phone to make sure his secret fortune stayed secure. She finds the documentation center in the back corner, filing cabinets and banker's boxes organized with the same precision as the tools. Callum opens the first cabinet and reveals what 47 years of record-keeping produces: purchase receipts with original bills of sale, maintenance logs detailing every oil change and tire rotation, photographs tracking each vehicle's condition year by year, provenance files proving authenticity beyond dispute. He pulls out the Cobra's folder first. Inside, original invoice from Shelby American dated May 1967, showing this specific chassis number, window sticker listing factory options, registration documents, tracing every owner from new to Uncle Harlan to Callum. Maintenance log shows Callum changed the oil. September 15, 2023, less than 3 months ago, using period-correct Castrol GTX because modern synthetics would contaminate originality. You changed oil 3 months ago while we were eating food pantry soup. Had to. The schedule required it. Can't let these engines sit with degraded oil. Seals dry out, bearings score, residual acid etches cylinder walls. These cars are only worth what they're worth if they're maintained to original specification. Lorelei opens another cabinet and finds Uncle Harlan's personal files. Birth certificate from 1923. Naval discharge papers from 1946. Pacific Theater decorated engineer who kept aircraft carriers running during the island campaigns. Marriage license from 1948 to a woman named Dorothy. Divorce decree 1954. No children, irreconcilable differences. Then the car purchases start. 1955 Mercedes Gullwing bought 9 months after the divorce. Corvette split window purchased 1963, same year Dorothy remarried. Ferrari Testarossa acquired 1961 after Dorothy sent him a wedding announcement for her second marriage. Callum watches Lorelei piece together the pattern. Uncle Harlan bought cars the way other men buy whiskey, filling emptiness with expensive metal, building a collection instead of building a life. He never remarried, never dated as far as I know, Just worked at the John Deere plant, came home to this barn, maintained his cars. When I was a kid, family called him eccentric. When I got older, I understood he was just lonely. Why leave them to you? I was his only nephew who showed interest. Visited him here twice when I was in college, helped him rebuild the Cuda's transmission. He saw I had mechanical aptitude, that I respected what he built. When he died, his will specified everything in this barn goes to me with one condition: maintain the collection, never sell unless absolutely necessary. Protect what he spent his life building. And you honored that promise for 47 years while we went bankrupt. Lorelei's voice carries no inflection. She's moved past anger into something colder, more analytical. She's calculating what 47 years of lies cost them, measuring Callum's devotion to a dead man's dream against his marriage to a living woman. I honored both promises, to him and to you. This collection was always for you, Lori. Every hour I spent here was building your security. By hiding $300 million while I rationed cancer medication, the words land like ammunition, and Callum has no defense except the truth. I was wrong. I should have told you, should have trusted you, but I was terrified that if anyone knew, if word got out, we'd lose it all somehow. Lawyers, taxes, scammers, our own kids showing up wanting their inheritance early. I thought keeping it secret was keeping it safe. Safe for who? For us. For this moment. For when we had no other options left. We had no other options 3 years ago when you had your first heart attack. We had no other options when I got cancer. We had no other options when we lost the house. How much worse did things need to get before you opened this door? Callum sits heavily on a rolling stool beside the workbench, age and exhaustion settling into his frame. Until I was sure we couldn't survive any other way. Until selling was the only choice left. I thought if I revealed this too early, we'd spend it on temporary problems and have nothing for permanent solutions. Medical bills would eat half of it. Kids would want their share. Government would take 40% in taxes. By the time we actually needed it, there'd be nothing left. So you let me think we were dying poor. I let you think we had to be careful with money. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Lorelei walks to the far end of the barn where windows look out across 8 acres of Iowa farmland, corn stubble stretching to tree-lined sky heavy with December clouds. Somewhere beyond that horizon sits the apartment they can't afford, the nursing homes that will separate them, the children who block their phone numbers. And here, 89 miles from their collapsing life, sits enough money to solve every problem they've ever had. The revelation doesn't feel like salvation. It feels like discovering your marriage was built on performance art, like learning the man you've known for 52 years was actually playing a role scripted by someone else's dying wishes. She turns back to Callum, and her voice comes steady, measured. I need to understand something. When we sold our wedding china to buy groceries, you knew this was here. When I walked 4 miles round trip to save bus fare, you knew. When you rationed your heart medication because we couldn't afford refills, you knew we were sitting on enough money to buy the pharmaceutical company. Every moment of poverty we experienced, you knew it was performance. Theater. A test of how much suffering I could endure before you decided to end the experiment. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. Callum stands, walks to the Cobra, runs his hand along its flawless hood. When Uncle Harlan died, I was 28 years old, making $32,000 annually as a junior engineer. You were teaching first grade for $18,000. We had a 2-year-old son and a baby on the way. Our mortgage payment was $850 monthly, and we had maybe $2,000 in savings. Uncle Harlan's lawyer handed me keys to this barn and said your uncle left you approximately $400,000 worth of automobiles. In 1976, that was generational wealth. That was retire early money. That was everything we'd been praying for. So why not sell them? Because the lawyer also handed me Uncle Harlan's letter. 10 pages explaining how he'd spent 20 years building this collection. How each car was chosen specifically for its investment potential. How if I held them for 30 or 40 years, they'd be worth 10 times what they were then. He made me promise. Made me swear on his grave I'd protect them, maintain them, only sell when I had no other choice. And you considered poverty a choice. I considered temporary hardship different from permanent crisis. Every time we hit a rough patch, I'd tell myself, this isn't bad enough yet. We can survive this. Credit cards, home equity line, retirement funds. There were always other options. I kept thinking, next time, next crisis, that'll be when I tell her. That'll be when it's bad enough to justify breaking my promise. Until when? Until we were literally dying, separated in nursing homes. Until I was sure nothing else would save us. Until the choice became dishonor. Uncle Harlan's memory, or watch my wife die alone. That's when. 3 days before they separate us forever, that's when I decided 47 years of secrecy mattered less than 52 years of marriage. Lorelei processes this, fitting it against everything she knows about the man she married. Callum never broke promises, showed up for every parent-teacher conference, never missed an anniversary, worked 41 years at the same company because he committed and he followed through. That integrity was the foundation she built her life on. Discovering he maintained that same integrity toward a dead uncle while their marriage drowned feels like learning gravity works sideways. What do we do now? Now we get this collection properly appraised, find out exactly what it's worth, what taxes we'll owe, what we'll net after everything clears. Then we decide which pieces to sell. Which pieces? Callum gestures at the 12 vehicles around them. We don't need $340 million, Lori. We need enough to pay medical debt, buy a modest house, afford my surgery, live comfortably. That's maybe $5 million tops. We can sell 2 or 3 cars, keep the rest preserved exactly like Uncle Harlan wanted. After 47 years of hiding this from me, you still want to honor his wishes? I want to honor what he built. These cars aren't just money, they're American automotive history. Museums would preserve maybe half of these. The others will end up in private collections we'll never see again. If we're selective about what we sell, we can keep the most historically significant pieces intact. So we're curators now, custodians of some dead man's car collection. We're survivors, making decisions that let us live the rest of our lives without poverty hanging over us. But yes, I'd like to preserve what can be preserved. Uncle Harlan spent 40 years building this. I spent 47 maintaining it. I'm not throwing that away just because we need cash. Lorelei laughs, sharp and bitter. You maintained his cars better than you maintained our marriage. The accusation hangs between them like cordite smoke. Callum's face shows the hit landing, shows understanding that Lorelei's anger runs deeper than 47 years of secrecy, cuts into 52 years of trust he spent without realizing its cost. You're right. I prioritized wrong, put metal ahead of honesty, protected an inheritance instead of a partnership. I failed you in ways I can't fix by opening this barn door. Can you fix it at all? I don't know. But I'm hoping $300 million buys enough time to try. They stand in the climate-controlled space surrounded by automotive history, 270-something human beings whose marriage just survived. Revelation that would shatter most unions. Outside December, wind moves across Iowa farmland carrying the promise of snow. Inside, machines worth more than small countries sit silent and perfect, waiting for decisions that will change everything. Lorelei walks to the workbench and picks up Callum's maintenance log, leather-bound journal filled with 47 years of entries documenting every moment he spent here instead of home. September 12, 1976. First oil change on Cobra. Used Castrol, GTX 20W50 per factory spec. Drained 3.5 quarts, refilled with 4. Engine turns smooth. Uncle H would be proud. She flips forward through decades. April 3rd, 1989. Thornton's birthday today. Lori threw party while I rotated tires on Ferrari. Felt guilty missing it, but Testarossa needed attention. Made it home by 6. Thor never knew I was gone. October 27th, 1994. Genevieve's ballet recital tonight. Spent morning rebuilding CUDA carburetor. Finished just in time. Lori asked where I was. told her hardware store. 13th lie this month. May 8th, 2006. Beatrice graduates med school tomorrow. Should be helping set up celebration, but Miura needed valve adjustment. Can't postpone maintenance schedule. We'll make it up to them somehow. Every page, another moment. Callum chose machinery over family. Another Saturday or Sunday, he vanished into this barn while Lorelei managed their actual life. She reads them aloud and watches her husband flinch with each entry, watches him confront what his devotion cost. Did you love these cars more than you loved us? Never. Not once. But I convinced myself maintaining them was maintaining you, building security, protecting our future. Every hour I spent here was supposed to be an hour invested in making sure you'd never worry about money. Instead, you made me worry about where you were. Made me raise 3 children mostly alone while you disappeared every weekend into some sacred obligation you couldn't explain. Made me think maybe you just needed time away from family, from responsibility from me. I never wanted time away from you. Then why spend 47 years taking it? The question has no good answer, and Callum's silence confirms it. He built an excuse structure sophisticated enough to sustain itself for half a century, told himself he was protecting her while actually protecting his inheritance, convinced himself secrecy equaled love when it only equaled fear. Lorelei sets down the journal and walks back to the vehicles, examining them with new perspective. Not just cars, but choices. Not just metal, but priorities. Each one represents weekends. Callum wasn't present birthday parties. He arrived late to anniversaries where his attention lived elsewhere. The collection is immaculate because his presence here was absolute. His marriage survived despite being secondary. We need someone who can tell us what these are actually worth. Not estimates from auction websites, but real professional appraisal. I can make calls tomorrow. There's a maritime museum in Chicago that specializes in transportation history. Their curator handles automotive appraisals. Maritime Museum. These are cars, not boats. Midwest Automotive Heritage Museum shares space with Great Lakes Maritime Institute. Same building, same organization. Dr. Constance Hargrove runs both departments. She's the best in the region for American classics. How do you know her? I don't. But Uncle Harlan's files reference her work. She authenticated a Duesenberg for an estate sale 3 years ago. If anyone can give us accurate valuation and handle this discreetly, it's her. Discreetly. Because we can't let anyone know we have this until we understand what we're dealing with, especially not our children. The words sit heavy between them. Thornton, who blocked their number. Genevieve, who refused their certified mail. Beatrice, who signed for their letter and never responded. If word reaches them that their poverty-stricken parents actually control 9-figure wealth, they'll surface faster than lawyers at plane crashes. When do we tell them? After we sell what we're selling, pay what we owe, and secure what we're keeping. After there's nothing left to fight over. They'll say we're cutting them out. They cut themselves out 31 months ago. We're just honoring their decision. Lorelei appreciates the logic even as she recognizes its cruelty. 3 children who abandoned their parents during medical crisis and financial collapse don't deserve inheritance warnings. But she spent 52 years trying to be better than her worst impulses, trying to model forgiveness and grace even when it costs her. They're still our children. They're adults who made choices, who decided we weren't worth their time when we had nothing to offer. I'm not rewarding that behavior by giving them advance notice of wealth they never earned. What if they have legitimate claims? Community property inheritance rights, legal standing. Then they can hire lawyers, and we'll deal with it when it happens. But I'm not volunteering information that lets them sabotage our survival because they suddenly care now that we're valuable. Lorelei recognizes this Callum, the one who shows up when pressure builds, who makes hard decisions without sentiment clouding judgment. He ran engineering projects that required choosing which components fail safely, which compromises save the structure, even if they sacrifice aesthetics. He's applying that same calculus now. Sacrifice relationship with children who already abandoned them, preserve marriage and financial security that might save their lives. She wants to argue that family matters more than money. Wants to believe that Thornton and Genevieve and Beatrice would react with joy instead of greed if they learned their parents aren't dying broke. But 31 months of silence speaks louder than hope, and Lorelai's run out of optimism to spend on people who won't spend time on her. Call Dr. Hargrove tomorrow. Get her out here to appraise the collection. But Cal, if we're doing this, we're doing it my way. No more secrets. No more hidden accounts or surprise revelations. Everything transparent from this point forward. Everything transparent. I promise. You promised Uncle Harlan too, for 47 years. How do I know this promise means more? Because Uncle Harlan is dead and you're alive, and I finally understand which one matters more. The barn door stays open while they conduct inventory, Callum checking each vehicle's condition against maintenance logs, while Lorelai photographs documentation for records. The Cobra's paperwork alone fills 2 bankers' boxes, every receipt, every photo, every service record from 1967 to present. Callum lifts out a manila envelope marked Provenance. Critical and inside. Lorelai finds the holy grail of automotive collecting, complete ownership chain from Shelby American Factory to Uncle Harlan to Callum, each transfer documented and notarized, no gaps, no questions, proof beyond dispute that this specific chassis is exactly what it claims. How much does provenance add to value? Difference between $3 million and $5 million. Anybody can claim they have a real Cobra. Most are replicas or restored wrecks. This one has paperwork proving it's never been wrecked, never been modified, never been anything except what it was built to be. He shows her similar documentation for each vehicle. The Ferrari's racing history traced through FYA competition records. The GT40's Le Mans victory proven by finish line photographs and trophy presentations. The Gullwing's original dealer invoice from Stuttgart showing factory delivery specification. Every car in this barn comes with evidence that eliminates doubt, and in the collector world, doubt costs millions. 3 o'clock and Lorelai's stomach reminds her they haven't eaten since the 75-cent oatmeal this morning. Callum pulls a small cooler from beneath the workbench containing 2 sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, 2 apples, 2 bottles of water. He made lunch and brought it here like this barn was always their destination, like he knew today was the day secrecy ended. You planned this. Packed food brought me here deliberately. I couldn't tell you at the apartment. Needed you to see it, understand what Uncle Harlan built, what we're protecting, what you're protecting. I didn't know any of this existed until yesterday. Now you do. Now we protect it together. They eat sandwiches sitting on the rolling stools beside the workbench, surrounded by $340 million in automotive art, and Lorelai realizes this is the most expensive picnic in human history. The absurdity makes her laugh, genuine amusement breaking through the emotional exhaustion. What's funny? This, us, eating peanut butter sandwiches in a secret barn that costs more than Connecticut. Yesterday we couldn't afford dinner. Today we're millionaires having a picnic. Technically we're not millionaires until we sell something. Technically you've been a millionaire for 47 years and just never mentioned it. Fair point. Afternoon light angles through the high windows. December sun weak but present, illuminating dust motes that shouldn't exist in climate-controlled space. This pristine. Callum notices and frowns, stands, checks the environmental monitors. Temperature 68.3. Humidity 44.9. All systems optimal. What's wrong? Nothing. Just habit. Check the monitors every time I'm here. Make sure nothing's degrading. After 47 years, you still worry. These cars represent 5 decades of work. Uncle Harlan's and mine. You never stop worrying about something that valuable. You worried about cars more than you worried about us. The statement doesn't land like accusation this time, just observation. Callum sets down his sandwich and looks at Lorelai with 52 years of marriage reflected in his weathered face. You're right. I did. And that's a failure I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to correct. But Lori, these cars saved us. Right now, today, they're the reason we don't have to die separated. That has to count for something. It counts. Doesn't erase the cost, but it counts. 4 o'clock, they lock up the barn and drive back toward Waterloo. The return trip passes in relative silence, both of them processing revelations that need more than 90 minutes to absorb. Somewhere around Cedar Falls, Lorelei's phone buzzes with text from the nursing home reminder. Move-in scheduled December 15th, 3 o'clock p.m. Please confirm. She shows Callum the message. Should I cancel? Not yet. Let's wait until Dr. Hargrove confirms what we have. Don't want to burn bridges before we know we can afford to rebuild them. Practical advice from a man who spent 50 years hiding bridges Lorelei didn't know existed. But he's right. If the appraisal somehow comes back different from his estimates, if there's legal complications or tax implications they haven't considered, they need the nursing home option available. She texts back confirming for December 15th and feels her heart break a little more. Evening finds them at the apartment going through motions that feel surreal after the day's revelations. Lorelei heats soup that costs $1.09 while Callum sorts mail they can't pay. Foreclosure notices and medical bills and credit card warnings, none of which matter anymore, except they still do until money actually moves from theoretical to real. How long until we can access funds, assuming Dr. Hargrove can appraise quickly, assuming we find buyers willing to move fast, assuming paperwork clears without complications, maybe 30 days. We have 72 hours before the nursing homes. I know. So what do we do for the next month? Move into the barn. It has bathroom facilities, running water, space heater. We can survive there while the sales process. You want us to live in your secret barn? I want us to live together anywhere that isn't 187 miles apart. Lorelei considers this. The barn is weatherproof, climate-controlled, has all utilities. They'd be sleeping on cots surrounded by priceless automobiles, but they'd be sleeping together. The apartment lease ends December 31st anyway. They'd lose their security deposit, but they're losing that regardless. Okay. We move to the barn. Callum's surprise shows on his face. Just like that. Just like that. You spent 47 years there without me. Time I saw what was so important you'd sacrifice weekends for half a century. That night, Lorelei lies awake running calculations. If they sell the two least valuable cars, the Camaro and the hot rod, they'd net maybe $4 million after auction fees and taxes. Pay off medical debt, buy modest house cover, Callum's surgery, establish trust fund for living expenses. Keep the 10 most historically significant vehicles for museums or permanent collection. Restore relationship with children if possible, or accept that some bridges burn too completely to rebuild. The math works. The logic holds. But underneath the practical planning, grief moves like subsurface current. Grief for 52 years of marriage that operated on asymmetric information. Grief for the partnership she thought they had versus the performance Callum maintained. Grief for weekends he wasn't present, conversations he couldn't have, honesty he chose not to give. Beside her, Callum sleeps fitfully, chest rising and falling in rhythms that sound labored. His heart failing at 28% capacity, pushing blood through vessels that can't handle the load. He needs surgery he can't afford but actually can. Needs medication he rations but doesn't have to. Needs his wife to forgive choices that saved them even as they broke her trust. Lorelei reaches across the darkness and finds his hand. Holds it like she's held it for 52 years through better and worse sickness and health secrets and revelations. He squeezes back without waking muscle memory from half a century of touch. Tomorrow they'll call Dr. Hargrove. Tomorrow they'll begin the process of converting hidden wealth into actual survival. Tomorrow the nursing homes will call with final reminders, and Lorelei will tell them plans have changed without explaining how. Outside, December, snow begins falling across Iowa, covering the world in white that makes everything look clean and new. Inside the apartment, they can't afford. Lorelei and Callum sleep their last night, as people without options, their last night before everything changes. Their last night carrying poverty they never actually had to bear. The barn waits 89 miles north, locked and climate-controlled, protecting treasures that will transform their future while preserving history nobody knows exists. 12 automobiles rest in perfect alignment, maintained across decades by a man who honored promises to the dead while breaking faith with the living. Inside apartment 2F on Elm Ridge Court, Lorelei dreams of automobiles painted impossible colors, of climate-controlled warehouses holding secrets bigger than buildings, of brass keys that unlock doors to futures she never knew existed. In 3 days, they'll move to the barn. In 30 days, they'll sell their first masterpiece. Constance Hargrove sent at 6:43 a.m. Received your inquiry regarding automotive collection appraisal. Available for site visit Wednesday, December 13th. Please confirm location and access details. Professional discretion guaranteed. Callum responds within minutes, providing coordinates and security codes emphasizing confidentiality requirements. Hargrove replies, understood. See you 10 o'clock a.m. Wednesday. Bringing documentation specialist and insurance assessor. Total 3 personnel.